Okay, this is an incredible time to be alive. It is now possible to create an entire AI workforce who work for you around the clock and do anything you want to do. And Kip and I are going to showcase the tool that you can use today to do this for you and give you some of the best use cases that we found of Manus AI, the very first ever autonomous agent. And oh, wow, is it powerful.
Okay, Kieran, the entire internet is talking about Manus. And Manus is another one of the growing AI startups out of China. And it is really the first real, you don't need to know how to code. You can just type in your natural language and build a multi-step agent. Is I think what we thought OpenAI's operator was going to be, but it is actually able to deliver on that promise.
Right. It's actually accurate. It's pretty fast, actually, compared to operator.
It's pretty fast.
And it can do a lot of work. Think about it as you set a task, and if it has to do data analysis, and if it has to write some lightweight code, whatever it has to do to complete that task, it can actually do it. And on this episode, we're going to break down how it does it and also give you some real examples that we've done and used Manus for, so you can actually go sign up for the wait list and start to use it today. This is the incredible thing. It's not a vaporware product. You can actually start to use this today. And some of the actual use cases that I've seen and some of the use cases you run it for are pretty mind-blowing.
I want to just go straight in and show everybody something I built in Manus. Shout out to the Manus team for getting me off the wait list and letting me go in and build here. So Kieran, you and I have talked a lot about, in the world of AI, kind of targeting and personalization and conversion rate is kind of a solved problem. And one of the ways I wanted to test that out is I wanted to say, hey, could I write a prompt that would basically allow Manus to be my own kind of BDR? And what I said is, please identify companies and contacts at those companies that might be a strong fit for HubSpot's product offering. These companies should be growth-minded, small, medium-sized businesses in the United States. I would like you to do the following. I said, first, research and identify prospective customers for HubSpot. In this research, please return company name, contact name, and any contact information and LinkedIn URL. This is pretty complicated, right?
Right. You're basically, the setup here for listeners, obviously we're showing the actual screen, is you're giving it all of the context needed to figure out how to identify the right ICP, which is your ideal customer profile.
Yeah, I love that. And so what we're really trying to do is give it some very precise, specific, and step-by-step instructions. And so I wanted it to evaluate each of these company sales and marketing strategy, their strengths and their weaknesses. That is something if you are an entry-level salesperson, you go out and do. You identify a company, you look at its website, you say, hey, I think it's really good. And I say sales and marketing because that's the tools HubSpot provides. We help sellers, marketers, customer service folks. And so I did sales and marketing. It identified what those sales and marketing strengths and weaknesses are by company, right? And then I was write a call script for each of those companies. If I was actually going to pick up the phone and call those companies, what would I tell them? And then I was please give me all of this information in a CSV file. So that's what I requested.
Right. And I think what you're showcasing is, again, you still need the domain expertise to be able to guide the agent. And the better the prompt you give it, the better context you give it, the better you set it up for what the outcome is you want. In very much the same way, again, you would actually manage an employee, the better your results are going to be. And that's where a lot of the skill set is going to go to, is how to manage these agentic workflows.
Yes. And keep in mind right now, I'm doing all of this for free. This is in a free version of this product, right? And so, Kieran, so first of all, I tried to do it a couple times and the service was too busy. So one of the challenge with startups is that they have kind of more constrained capacity. Then eventually I was able to get it to work. And then here you see it basically said, hey, I'm going to start going through these steps. And so it tells you the steps here. Research HubSpot products offerings. And it's actually browsing the internet. It's creating files. It's executing commands. It's clicking on elements on pages, right? So it's amazing the level of steps involved here. This is very complex, very multi-step workflow.
it can just scrape all of the websites, right? Like that in itself is pretty cool. Like you actually have all these different tools that have built to scrape websites where Manus can just go and actually background write that code and start to. It uses a tool called browser use. That's how it's navigating all these websites and pulling it into the CSV for you.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool. And so this took about 35 minutes approximately to do all of these steps, which if you think about it, it's wild. What do you think it would take a human? And it ended up doing 5 companies. And we'll talk about that in a second. How long do you think it takes a human to do 5, to find and do all this work for 5 companies?
Well, I can tell you like that like the average BDR is going to spend the majority of their time doing these tasks and trying to research a company and trying to identify product problem fit. Right? Like what is the core problems that this company is trying to solve and what are the problems that are a good map? And so this is the most time consuming part of that job.
It takes a ton of time. And so what it actually did here, Kieran, is it gave us a CSV. And it found these 5 companies. Shout out to these companies. But basically it found 5 companies. It found the CEO at each of those 5 companies because I didn't specify who at those companies. If I were doing this like at real scale, like it's one of the things I would do is talk about the specific profile of person, right? And it got me their contact information, their LinkedIn profile. And I think what was really interesting to me about this, Kieran, is the work it did to determine what were its strengths and weaknesses as it relates to the HubSpot product offering. Right? So you can see here, it basically created a known taxonomy of things and whether they were good or bad at it, right? So clear value proposition, emotional marketing approach, user-generated content strategy, free trial option, right? These are all things that were marketing strengths for these companies. Hey everyone, I want to talk about prompting with you today. Being great at prompting gives you superpowers. It changes how you can build and work and do everything with AI. And because of that, we wanted to make a special guide just for you around how to get better at prompting framework for how you actually build prompts. And so we've got this baseline framework that you can then go and build and customize any prompts that you want to. You can check it out in the link in the description below. And right now we're gonna get back to today's show.
The other thing that for people to think about when they're following along here is just how disruptive of a force this is going to be. So what the agent is basically
unbelievable.
What this agent is doing, right, to make sure people understand what's happening here. What Manus really is people have heard of Cursor. Cursor is this development tool that is wrapped around Claude and other models, but for the most part, people are using it with Claude 0.35 to code full stack apps. And the only 2 things that I'm really spending my time on outside of keeping up to date with this and trying to do all of the things that I do day to day in AI, outside of that, it's really Cursor and MCPs. And what this really is a Cursor-like equivalent for autonomous agent, which I mean, it's like a wrapper that's built around Claude 3.5, and we're going to get into some of that. And then it's extended using tools. So we're going to do an episode on MCPs. So these model context protocols, and I'm not going to go really technical here. All people need to know is you're able to extend these agents by giving them tools to use, right? You can say, here's a bunch of tools. And so when I give you a task, you can choose whatever tools you want to use. And that's what Manus really is. It's a wrapper around Claude, so it's built on Claude model, and then it has all of these tools. And then when you give it a task, it's like using all these tools. I'm going to use the browser use to scrape all this website. I'm going to use my coding tool to code something, that lightweight tool that I need. And it's really incredible to see just how many tasks it can get through in such a short amount of time. And the other thing I was pretty impressed by is, number one, how fast it is, much, much faster than I think OpenAI's Operator. I'm sure they will scale it up pretty rapidly. And then the second thing is just how accurate it is. And so the reason that my original point here is how disruptive this is. And so let's say there's all these kind of data source tools. And today you have all these data source providers, and you would have to go and you would have to say to these data source providers, I'm looking for these kind of people in this kind of market that I can solve this problem for. You can easily extend Manus by giving it some more tools. And then you actually have the equivalent now in that agent, because it can scrape all of the stuff on the web. You give it some access to other data sources and can pull all that in. You have your own kind of data provider, right? And for B2B now, you can build your own kind of little data provider that actually gives you all of the ideal customer profiles that you need to actually market to. And I think that's what you originally said was I believe marketing is going to changed from like a very volume centric play, how we acquire lots of things, to a very like value. How do you target,
Yes.
get very, very targeted, and how do you like really over deliver for those people to way increase your conversion rates?
Completely. Because the magic here and what this app Manus did for free was it found these companies, found the right person at this company, then found out what the strength and weaknesses were for this company as it relates to HubSpot's products, right? And so you have some weaknesses here: limited lead generation tools, limited pricing transparency, the blog organization is a weakness, limited enterprise positioning, limited lead nurturing visibility. These are all things that if you are selling a marketing tool, you want to understand.
Right.
Like, it's amazing.
Pretty incredible.
The thing that really blew my mind, Kieran, is it went and it found out these weaknesses. And then it went and looked at HubSpot's product pages to figure out what HubSpot products map to those weaknesses.
And I can tell you that because we have such a broad product set, that is also a very
That's a hard problem
for sales. And so what it picked up when I looked through your results, it picked up things that were kind of interesting, right? It said, hey, this company do not have a blog. This company has not posted many blog posts, so they're not leaning into content marketing. It actually picked up that this company had a couple of 404 errors, so it's scraping their website, right?
Totally.
And actually, that is just bananas. And so it's able to like take all of the website, use that as data to say, well, here's my assessment, like here's my grade, and then based upon their weaknesses, it did a pretty good job of not only pattern matching to the right HubSpot kind of product at its first attempt, right? This is no revision.
This is one shot.
And then did pricing. And then created a pretty good pitch. That alone is an entire couple of days of work.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really good at this work, what this did would have probably taken you 2 hours.
And
if you're like top level,
and you have 35 minutes, you reduced like that, and then this thing,
and that wasn't active. It's not like I was doing things for that 35 minutes. I was doing something else,
and that's one instance of Manus. I would challenge people to think about when you have, and I want to show you this actually. I'm going to show you a quick screen just this one, because it's just like bananas to think about. Like this is actually, I think, one of the best visuals and just how wacky things are going to become. So this is my point. You're showing a single,
Oh, I love this.
You're showing a single agent doing a task and it looks pretty cool. What I'm showing on my screen is 50 instances of Manus.
All running different social media accounts,
running
right?
different, social media accounts. And so
Wild.
There's no reason you can't have 100. There's no reason you can't have a company of 10,000 people that are always doing this work. It is like incredible to think about. And Manus, for me, the operator, I don't know what you felt like, but when I used OpenAI operator, I thought it was like cool, but you couldn't really grok how powerful it was going to be.
It didn't feel like it had any scale or power to it.
But this is the first time where you're like, holy smokes, if I have a bunch of these things running, the amount of work I can get done.
I can do 10x, 100x in a day.
The other one I want to show you before you get into your other example, because it's the thing I'm obsessed about is the reverse of what you're showing. So let me show you what I mean by that.
Oh, please.
So what we think about a lot, obviously because we're in marketing, is our ability to better market to people who want to buy B2B software. What I am really obsessed about is the B2B's buyer ability to use agents to not have to do any of the buying themselves. Because that, to me, is more transformational than the reverse of that, right?
I couldn't agree more.
And so this is a really good example of what I mean. So this is Manus. And what I believe happens in the future is you don't touch anything that exists on the web today to actually choose software. You get it all built for you in a personalized way. So the example that I'm going to show here is Manus is going to build a aggregator, because with the thing for rubber mats, and the thing I really care about is the price, right? So I actually want to build my own recommendation engine that is allows me to like my own recommendation engine, like my own kind of G2 crowd for rubber mats, and I can actually sort it based upon price. And so what it's going to do here, and I'm going to go to the end because like people saw your example, I could see it's running through all of these different sites. But I want to get right to the end to show you what it's built. So this here you can see on the right-hand side, it's basically built this whole app. And this app now allows me to sort through the suppliers that I'm trying to find in a very customized way based upon what my core criteria is.
Bananas.
But so think about it. If you were buying any software, I can say, I care about A, B, C, D, and E. Now build me an aggregator app that aggregates them all together and allow me to like, I can look through it based on user reviews. I can look through it based upon whatever I want to do. And not only that, I actually think you're going to be able to get Manus to go in and actually do the trial.
Yeah,
right? Like sign in, use the software, tell me does it do A, B, and C, and you can actually ingest that back into the app. That to me is pretty wild. Like I can't wait to actually start to use this to try to build some product sites that I can actually choose what products I want to buy based upon a custom site built for me. I never have to touch the vendor site, only to actually complete the transaction.
I mean, are we ready for this?
I think this year is, I don't know what you think.
I think a decade happens in this year.
We're only in March. I think things are moving. It's the first time I think things are moving too fast. I actually need someone to just like say, can I just finish my cursor course and build my MCP servers before you release any more stuff? Because I just can't keep up.
You and I are I would call us hyper learners.
Yeah.
Like we're obsessive learners. And this is one of the first time in the last decade where I have felt like I cannot keep up.
But the interesting thing is, well, you're kind of leverage, because your leverage goes right. Last week you and I were WhatsApping. I was showing you something I built using Claude and MCPs, which again is what Manus kind of is. It's just a way better, more sophisticated version. MCPs are again just tools you can give Claude, and Claude can go and use. And so the example I had was I told Claude to go research marketing agency services and then build a business that could actually automate those services through AI and create the website and choose the branding and then add it all to GitHub. And I showed you it did all of that. When we go through the episode, I'll show you bananas. What it built. So that took some amount of skill, right? Because I actually had to integrate
you had
the
to
stuff
do some
into
technical
Claude.
stuff.
Now Manus, you don't need to do any of that. They do it for you. So again, it continues to like remove where your leverage is. Like what is my leverage? I can do this task. Oh, now Manus can just do it. I can't for everyone, right? So like it's a constant like where does the leverage accrue to is I think a really important thing to try to figure out.
Yeah. So to close out on the last example about like this BDR and prospect identification, it did write custom scripts. Yeah, personalized to each of those companies and their strengths and weaknesses, and talked about how HubSpot could accelerate their growth. I could have given some more specific instructions on the call script. I think it would have been much better. Again, this is like a pretty basic first shot, but it is wild that this was not possible a year ago. Just literally not possible.
Not even close.
And now it is not only possible, it's free. The only thing I will say, Kieran, before we go to another example here is there's limits, right? I asked it to find 100 companies. It could find 5.
Right.
And I tried to have it find more, and it was like, hey, I'm at the end of my capacity for this task. You need to start a new task. So the context window for these tasks are still smaller. One of the things you and I are just, when we talk to each other almost every day, we're just like, can the context windows get bigger?
Yeah.
Can the models get faster? I don't need them to get smarter. I need them to absorb more, remember more, and connect more with my other technology.
They need to have bigger context windows. Again, they need to connect with your own data and to be able to pull and ingest your own data really easily. I think the context window is a big one, right? Like
it's huge.
Let's say you want to really collapse a bunch of tools into Manus and for your prospecting and outreach and competitor research. It's like how much that actually eventually cost you because of the amount of additional bandwidth you need. But I still think cost is going to be a solved problem for AI. And so like long term, it will like just be way cheaper to do this than it is today via humans.
Yeah, so I completely agree. So I showed you, Kieran, and everybody watching like a sales example, right? How you find and reach out to target prospects in a really interesting way. So then I was like, well, what's in a marketing example that literally any company would want to do? And so I had Manus say like, hey, review all of HubSpot.com's product pages, rewrite the copy to make an emphasis more on our 3 key benefits, easy, fast, and unified. And the target audience for these pages is growth-minded business leaders. Can you create a CSV with each page URL and updated copy? And that's very basic instructions. I could have given a much better prompt, but it couldn't find, and again, just like it couldn't find 100 companies, it couldn't find every single product page, But if you look at what it did, it came up with it did 5 product pages and was able to return the exact request I had. It gave me the current copy. I didn't tell it to give me the current copy, right? It inferred its ability to do that, then gave me an updated copy, which I thought like definitely fit the bill for what it was trying to do, right? And so that's a very simple example that if you're in marketing, you're going to be interested in doing, because you're like, hey, I can now edit and create content at scale with way less manual work and context. If you're just like, I don't even have to give you the URLs. It's like, for most companies, they don't have more than like 5 product pages. So that would be a simple way to do a quick update to all their product pages. And it did that in like 15 minutes.
Like the kind of mundane work goes away pretty rapidly with this. Like I can imagine
Unbelievable.
Once it's actually integrated into your tech stack, once it's integrated into your tools, its ability to be able to do things for you and take away a lot of the mundane work will be huge. Now, it is a Chinese company. So again, there is going to be a lot of limitations in the way people will want to use it. It's a Chinese company based out of, where is it based out of? Wuhan. The other one I want to show you actually, it's not too dissimilar from what I was using. The example I give that I was playing around with Claude. So this is it basically scraping the entirety of Apple's website and then cloning it. So let me give you a pretty great use case. I think this is one of the ones I'm excited myself to go play around with. So I'm a company of any type. I can now replicate any other business and just ask it to make some slight modifications and tweaks. So any website you are a fan of, you can actually just go and have it create that for you, but then say like, change the branding, change this, change that, and it will adapt it to your style. Now, Lovable do a really good job of this as well. I've been using Lovable to do mockups versus actually any kind of design tools. But again, like its ability to just do this in one shot. That's the thing I was saying to you on the WhatsApp. The important thing to emphasize here when I say one shot is it can just like replicate the website. It makes no errors. And you don't have to give it any revisions. Your stuff was very similar. Like it just did the thing and you didn't have to like correct it or tell it to do something differently. It just got it straight away. And that is the Claude's latest model. Its ability to one-shot task is pretty incredible. Like the task I give it to do research, provide services, get branding, do website, all within one prompt, no revisions, no error correction, and it did it all out of the gate. And so I think the latest Claude model with these wrapper tools are really impressive. The other one, I just want to quickly show you one thing. The other one that might be interesting.
Just what's possible now is just insane.
It's too,
right?
It's too much. It's actually the possibilities
is
are
literally
endless.
too much.
But to give our listeners, a kind of tangible one that they probably do care about is like recruitment. So it's actually very similar to what you did, but it's actually for recruitment. So this is an example of it basically going through and actually taking a long list of PDFs, resumes, and being able to assess them and stack rank them based upon criteria you have.
This is a good one.
Now, what I would say is a better addition to this is take those existing PDFs, ask it to scrape LinkedIn for those profiles, and then ask it to ingest any write-ins or interviews that person has done externally and combine it all and provide a grade based upon like that all of that data.
Yes.
Because you can actually combine it really easily. And actually, so Manus to be a really great recruitment tool. The one thing that does make me think about is if more and more companies are going to use agents to be able to do prospecting of candidates as well, you really need to have better ability to showcase your work online. Like, I don't know if LinkedIn need to have some sort of ways so you can showcase work in interesting ways so AI agents can pick it up and use it as part of this criteria.
Well, I think this is a very, very important point as we're kind of wrapping up the show today, is that with these big fundamental innovations like agents, like Manus, like we're talking about today, it creates a second order effect where like you need all new infrastructure on the internet. Websites need to work differently. Social networks need to work differently. All of these things are likely going to be reinvented over the next decade.
Right.
It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
And it might be the current companies reinventing themselves. It might be new companies coming along. We don't know the answer there, but it's clear there's going to be a bunch of reinvention.
Because you're having to build, you have a new user on the internet that's basically becomes the predominant user of most of these internet or most of the websites and apps, which is an agent.
Correct.
And we haven't thought through how to build for agents, right? Because the user is now telling the agent to do all the things it used to do, but the agent is going to work very, very differently in how it wants to consume that data. We want to end on something like I thought was also like pretty eye-opening, right? So actually, let me flick to two. Before I introduce Anus, I want to quickly.
This guy's got a sense of humor.
I actually want to introduce why Anus is super interesting. So we're gonna give you a new agent, a bonus here called Anus. And so why is Anus interesting? Okay, well, this is kind of what I started with. So what is Manus, right? So the founder here confirmed this is true, which is it's built on Anthropic Claude Sonnet, right? It's not their own foundational model. It has access to 29 tools. So again, think of that as what you're hearing as MCPs, Model Context Protocol. It allows you to extend apps and give them tools to use. This one here, browser use, is how it's doing a bunch of the browser control, all open source. And then gives a little bit around how it communicates with different agents. And then like outperforms OpenAI's deep research on a benchmark. So like it's actually pretty incredible that the agent can actually do deep research as well as automate all these tasks. That those two things combined are incredibly powerful. And actually OpenAI hadn't even done that, which really does show the power of combining these tools in really intuitive ways. And so the thing I want to end with was, okay, well, if that stuff, none of it's their tools or apps, it's all kind of open source or available for other folks to use. What this person did was like super smart. They basically said, well, I'll just have Manus create itself.
That is super smart.
And so basically they had Manus create a new agent called Anus. And Anus is, this pretty cool, like Dharmesh would like this, right? It's a pretty good Venn diagram. So Manus AI is a powerful AI agent. I don't know if you know this, but the invite codes were going for $20,000 online. And
it's unbelievable.
There's a waiting list. You're in. Then there's the open source, which is a lot of the tools it's using is the open source. And now you have Anus. So what is Anus? Anus is basically an open source version of itself. So they've created this agent that you can go use in GitHub now that I'm going to actually go install tonight. It's created by Claude 3.7, right? So it's created by the model that it runs itself. And it basically just one-shotted and rebuilt itself using open source tools. So
it's just insane. We live in this world.
Try to figure out. I want everyone to like realize how mind-blowing this is. There is a business that went viral over the weekend that has a pricing model that everyone wants to use. They want to use it so much that they are trading $20,000 invite codes online. But that tool is so good, and Claude Sonnet 3.7 is so good at coding that it was able to replicate itself and put itself onto GitHub, and now you could just use it for free. And I can't get over how mind-blowing that is. Like, what happens if, okay, we don't need to go in this path, but like, what happens if I can just one-shot any software and open source it? Because it's possible.
I mean, over time, they'll get more and more possible. It's just, we are moving to a world in which brand, connection, point of view, the human aspect is going to be more and more important because the technical aspect will become more commoditized over time.
Darius, the CEO of Anthropic, said in 12 months' time, AI writes 100% of all code.
That's
try to wrap your head around. People should try to wrap their head around that. It's freaking mind-blowing.
I'll be honest with you. I think this was one of the most mind-blowing episodes we've ever done on the show. And I think we will look back and this will be one of the kind of tentpole moments in the history of the show and the history of AI for when like major breakthroughs have happened. And this is like the first real consumer agent that can do legit complicated work. And we showed you some great examples. Highly recommend you go and get on the wait list and everything for Manus if you want to check it out yourself.
And if you can't get on Manus, don't forget about Anus.
You just want to keep saying Anus. It's hilarious. But it's, but regardless, this is going to be the start of a wave of these type of consumer agents, Kieran. I suspect we're going to be talking more and more about this. I suspect Claude and OpenAI will both have some version 100%. Of this coming in the not that distant future. And we'll be back with those updates when they happen. But if my advice to everybody as we close out is you have to obsess about how you're going to get leverage for your company or in your role. And these types of agents are going to be a critical part of how you're going to get way more leverage in the future than you had today. Anything else?
No.
All right. This was awesome. My head's spinning. Thanks everybody for checking out today's show. We'll see you real soon on Marketing at Screen.
This data is wrong every freaking time.
Have you heard of HubSpot? HubSpot is a CRM platform where everything is fully integrated.
Whoa, I can see the client's whole history, calls, support tickets, emails, and here's a task from 3 days ago I totally missed.
HubSpot. Grow better.